How's it going, guys and girls? Hope you guys are having a great week. So I'm back today with another video. This one, guys, today I'm actually going to talk about the Marvel Avengers beta and weigh in on it, give my impressions on it. I actually have re-recorded this video. I did a longer, about 30-minute video, which I'm going to put in the description for anybody that is interested. It's going to be an unlisted video. You can follow the link if you want to check it out. But I felt it was too long, and I just wanted to get a bit more to the point, make this video a little bit punchy. So this is my second take, so hopefully this will go well. So this past weekend with Dante, we played the closed beta on the PlayStation 4, which was available from Friday the 7th of August until the 9th of August. We played a lot of it. We played kind of every element of it, jumped in and checked out all of the different characters that were playable. I've got to say that the content that was available was pretty extensive. It really does give you a good impression of what the game is going to have to offer and, you know, how Crystal Dynamics are sort of styling this game. So what's involved in it? Well, there are two hero missions. These are story-based missions that you can play through. You start off the beta playing through the A-Day mission. That's kind of the first 25 minutes of the game where you get to jump in to play each of the main Avengers. It then covers a period a little bit later, and we get to jump in and play a mission which centers around Hulk and Miss Marvel. So we get to get hands-on with both those characters and see sort of what other story-based missions are going to be as well. So for people that are interested in the single player and how that's going to play, definitely, you know, you'll get a sense of that through these story missions. We then have 3 harm room missions. These are basically training missions where you get to try out different characters, get to grips with their combat and their moves, and, you know, try attacking and surviving waves of increasingly more difficult enemies. Once you've done that, the game really then opens up and you gain access to the war table, and that gives you the multiplayer element of the beta, and you get to jump into several different drop zone and war zones, which range in length from extremely quick matches to a little bit more extensive. As you play through the game, you have access to 4 fully unlocked characters that you can play with to check out their abilities and their playstyle. Those are Iron Man, Hulk, Miss Marvel, and Black Widow. And you get to see how progression works in the game. And the beta will allow you to go up to a maximum level of 15 and a power level of 4. So you do get to try out the different customizable loot options. You get to have a look at what loot looks like. And even as part of the beta, you will gain access to different rarities of loot. So there's uncommon, rare, and legendary items which you can find out in maps, usually in treasure chests or dropped by particular target enemies. And those range from sort of green, blue, and purple in different elements. So that's the content that's available. So let's talk about what I liked and what I didn't like. And I'm going to try and cover this as quickly and concisely as possible, but obviously get my points across. So what did I enjoy? Well, I really enjoyed the 2 story missions. I actually thought that these were really good. The set pieces, particularly in the A-Day mission, were really, really cool and well crafted and well delivered. I mean, this is Crystal Dynamics, so we know that they're a studio that are pretty well seasoned when it comes to set pieces. You know, they were well known for this in the Tomb Raider reboot, did a really good job there, and it seems like that is going to be there in Marvel Avengers. And I really, really enjoyed the A-Day level. I thought it was really fun to jump into the shoes of each Avenger. I especially enjoyed Captain America's section and his combat. I found his combat really fun and would have liked to play more of as Cap. So hopefully, I'm hoping, you know, he doesn't die at the beginning of the game, as seems to be insinuated. I'm hoping he is going to be a playable character further on down the road. And I also really, really enjoyed Black Widow's segment in the A-Day mission as well. For me, Thor's combat was the one that I was kind of most unimpressed by, and that's just simply because I was making those comparisons between Thor and Kratos in God of War, and I just thought that God of War did that kind of combat better. I was expecting Thor's combat to be a little bit more fluid and, you know, to feel a little bit more hard hitting, and it just didn't feel that way for me. The combat felt a little bit sluggish for Thor, and his hammer just didn't seem to have as much punch as I was expecting. But maybe, you know, as you level him up, maybe as you get new abilities, his combat will really grow and be a lot more accessible. It could have also been something to do with the frame rate issues, because there were definitely some frame rate drops in the beta, and sometimes the game did really struggle with everything that was going on screen and all the action. I really enjoyed Hulk's mission and Miss Marvel's gameplay. I was surprised actually by how much I enjoyed Miss Marvel's combat. I thought her moves were really fun. I like her personality. I love the fact that she's a massive Avengers fan. She's a bit of a geek. I really like that. And I really enjoyed the boss fight as Hulk against the Abomination. That was really cool. What I will say is the story segments, the set pieces seem to have a lot of quick time events. So, you know, if you have an issue with that, then you might not like that here, but personally speaking, I thought the quick time events were well placed and made sense in the general context of what was going on. So I didn't really have a massive issue with it. In fact, having played those two missions, it did really get me really excited for the story. The voice acting was great. I don't have any massive issues with the design of the characters. I like the look of Black Widow, to be fair. I like the way that she looks. I think Iron Man looks fine. So I didn't have any massive issues like some people do, and I think that's because a lot of people are trying to compare it to the movies, but this is understandably Crystal Dynamics' way of putting their stamp on the Marvel universe and on the Avengers. So obviously they're going to make the characters look unique for them and a little bit different for them, but the voice acting was really spot on. I mean, it's got a very good roster of voice actors for this game, and I really enjoyed the banter and the back and forth between each of the characters. I enjoyed listening to those and seeing those characters interact, which was really cool. So I didn't have any massive issues with that. My only concern is how long the story is going to be. That's my main interest in Marvel Avengers, is the story and how good the single player is going to be, and I am hoping it's going to have a decent length. I don't want it to be too short, so that's my only, you know, major concern with it. The combat as well itself, while initially it took a little bit to get to grips with the combat, I actually started to really enjoy it once I got to grips with each of the different characters. It's very familiar to people that are used to melee combat based games. So your square button is mapped to light attacks, your triangle button to heavy attacks, and special abilities are mapped to the L1 and R1 button, and then you also have a super ability which is mapped to L1 and L2 if you press those together. So each character, you know, has some core similarities, but they do play very differently and they do feel very different as well. And even some of the characters have their own unique move sets that are unique to that character and their own unique sort of combat style and movement. And I enjoyed that. Hulk for me was your typical kind of button bashing type character. He's probably the easiest to play, I would say. And I enjoyed my segments as Hulk. He just basically goes in, wreaks havoc. I liked some of his super moves, particularly his massive sort of, you know, hand clap move, and even the moments where you could pick up enemies and grab enemies and throw them and swing them around and ground pound and smash. And so Hulk was just really fun, just to kind of let loose and go really crazy. Miss Marvel, like I said, was surprisingly fun and actually had some really cool and funny combos. I liked her, but my favorites most definitely were probably Iron Man, who was surprisingly more technical than I was expecting. Once you do get to grips with his flying and his hovering moves, which I will say isn't as intuitive as, say, Anthem, but once you do get to grips with his combat and some of the combos that he can string together, it's actually really fun. And I like the ability to sort of hover and, you know, shoot with beams and obviously flying around the map as well. It gives a nice verticality to the combat, which I really liked. And his, like, Hulk Buster armor was awesome. Like, every time I was able to jump into that, I was just in my element and really enjoyed it. So I definitely liked Iron Man, though I do think he is an acquired taste and he takes a little bit of getting used to. But my favourite character in terms of the combat, without a doubt, was Black Widow. I really enjoyed her combat. I just found her combat the most familiar and really easily accessible. I thought she was really, really good and had a lot more sort of options than I was expecting. So her grapple move was really awesome. It was a great way to sort of, you know, get up high on the different areas of the level. A great way to grapple onto enemies as well, to pull yourself towards them quickly. Can be used in combination with sort of traversal as well as combat. I really liked her cloaking tech. That was really cool, and you can actually use this to support your team. So if you cloak, your teammates will actually cloak as well if they're in the vicinity when you actually activate this ability. And it's really useful if you need to sort of res your team if they go down. So that was really, could be well used tactically, and I really like that. And then her combat was just a great mixture of ranged combat with her pistols and melee attacks as well, and that just made her combat really fun and really varied and really accessible, and that's why I probably enjoyed it the most out of all of them. We do get to see one skill tree. Apparently there are going to be 3 in the final game, which is unlocked, you know, the one skill tree, and it does allow you to sort of spend points into different areas. So there are, you know, parts of the skill tree that focus on light attacks, heavy attacks, special attacks, and, you know, unique abilities to that character. It didn't seem to change the different moves very much, but it did certainly allow you to add you know, more options to those move sets as well, and sort of more damage, more area of effect, and I enjoyed, you know, what we did see there. I am interested to see what the other 2 skill trees have on offer as well, and I am hoping that we will get access to more than the core 3 abilities that we did get to try out, because I do think the combat does need more variety in terms of those special moves. Otherwise, maybe the combat could start to feel a little bit repetitive, a little bit grindy. So those are the things that I enjoyed. What didn't I enjoy, or what do I think needs improving? Well, unfortunately, quite a few things. For me, there were elements when I was playing the beta where warning signals were just going off in my mind, and I had moments where it reminded me heavily of Anthem, and that was really discouraging to see. One of the biggest issues I have is that you always have to be online and connected to the game, so you must connect to the servers even when playing the single player portion of the beta. On quite a number of occasions I got connection problems which kicked me out of the game, meant on a couple of occasions I lost progress as well, as the checkpoint system wasn't great on some of the missions, and that was kind of frustrating. So this idea of, you know, having to be connected all the time, even if you don't want to play the multiplayer, I don't like that, especially when there are potential server issues. It's one of the biggest problems I had with Anthem, and I feel like it's going to be a problem with Marvel Avengers again. In terms of the multiplayer segment of the beta, for me, actually, this was the weakest part of the beta. I think the story looks really cool, and if they were just focusing on the story campaign, telling a really good story, you know, switching between the different Avengers, I think I would actually be more excited. But it was the multiplayer side of the beta that really worried me, and that I had massive issues with. The matchmaking was not great in the beta. It took absolutely ages to find matching players that were willing to play other characters or were of a similar level. So if I wanted to play, for example, Iron Man, I had to find 3 other players that would be playing, say, Black Widow, Hulk, and Miss Marvel. But if Iron Man's a very, very popular character and everybody wants to play him, it's going to make it harder for you to actually find a team. There were issues as well where sometimes I would be matchmaked with people that were a much higher level than me, and that meant when we went into the missions, the enemies were leveled at their level. So that meant that there were missions where I could literally be one-shotted by some of the enemies, and I spent most of my time running around trying to dodge people, trying to, you know, desperately find loot to level up my power level, and it just really, you know, hurt the experience for me, and there are massive issues in terms of the matchmaking. In fact, even some of the multiplayer missions were shorter and took less time than it did to actually form a team and jump into a match, which is a big problem. And then sometimes when you would finally have a team together, sometimes the server would just drop, or I would just get kicked out of a team, or if I was hosting a team, suddenly I would get kicked out randomly without any warning. So yeah, there were massive issues to do with that, and that really did sort of affect my overall enjoyment of it. The multiplayer missions themselves weren't amazing. They were okay, but I would say they were kind of mediocre, if a little bit subpar. Most of them involved things like, taking out particular target enemies, standing in circles while Jarvis hacks into particular tech, taking out waves of enemies. They were very short. They just didn't seem very interesting, and it just gave me, this sense of the only reason you're playing multiplayer is to loot grind. It is to find those treasure chests. It is to try to get better loot and to go through that. And I just don't have any interest in grinding, and the multiplayer really just really didn't do it for me at all. I just found the multiplayer missions really poor. You actually were given the option to vote on missions after each one, and with each of the multiplayer missions, I was giving them like a 1 or 2 stars out of 5. I was not impressed at all. If you do want to play the game all the way through solo though, so you can play these multiplayer missions with 3 other companion AI, but I will say that the companion AI was incredibly hit and miss. Sometimes they'd be very useful, attack enemies. Other times they just would not follow you. They'd be stuck standing still. Was really, really frustrating. It caused massive issues. And then sometimes there were particular areas of the map that you needed a particular character to do a certain action to progress. So for example, Hulk's super smash, that could be used to take down walls, and behind those walls there might be discoverable loot, or there might be a hostage that you needed to rescue as an additional optional mission. And if you weren't playing Hulk, there was no way for you to give an instruction to that AI companion to do that for you. So that was really frustrating. The loot itself, obviously Crystal Dynamics have said, this is a loot game, so loot's quite an important part of the game. But for me, that the loot was kind of generic. It was more sort of low level loot. So the loot that you pick up will give you different buffs and different passives, but it didn't really change the way in which I played. It didn't really change the combat. It would add some slight changes, like certain elemental damages or a certain percentage increased damage, but it wasn't significant enough that I really felt that difference and felt that change. So the loot for me wasn't overly impressive, and that's probably why I just wasn't as interested in the multiplayer, because the loot wasn't enticing enough for me to want to go back in and grind and play with other players. And so yeah, it didn't really do it for me. I think that Crystal Dynamics do need to relook at the loot and maybe try and improve on that. The beta was also extremely buggy in places, so there were times where there were frame rate issues. Clipping was often an issue. There were repeated server issues I had as well. And Dante even found a couple of bugs where his character even fell through the level at one point, and enemies would get stuck in the floor, making it impossible to finish a level. So the game feels unfinished. It feels like it needs more time to bake. It doesn't feel like it's ready, to be released in a month's time. And that's where I feel, releasing the beta only a month before it's set to be released just seems cutting it too close. I think it would have been more useful for Crystal Dynamics to release this beta a couple of months ago, to at least give them time to make improvements and listen to, player feedback. So yeah, there were definitely issues with that. So, after playing the beta, honestly speaking, I'm a little disappointed. I like the combat, don't get me wrong. I like the story segments of it, but a lot of the server issues, a lot of the bugs, a lot of the multiplayer side of it, the way in which the game is being marketed, these things all give me, a lot of areas to be concerned about. So I was hoping to be reassured with this beta. That's why I wanted to check it out, because it is a game I am worried about, and I didn't feel reassured after playing it. It just... I don't feel excited for the game coming out. Dante even said that he just was not impressed by it, and actually he chose to cancel his pre-order and has decided he's not actually going to buy the game when it is released in September, because it just reminded him too heavily of Anthem, and he already got burned with that. If I'm honest, if I didn't have to review the game for my channel, I probably wouldn't buy the game on release as well. This is the kind of game I feel that maybe it might be worth waiting on, waiting to see how the game releases, waiting to see how extensive the story is, how the servers actually function, how much content is in there. I will be playing the game and I will be reviewing it, most definitely. So for those of you on the fence, it's entirely up to you, you know, whether you want to buy the game on release. If you're super excited for it and you enjoyed the beta, that's great. You know, good on you. That's really good for you. But for me, it just was very disappointing, and yeah, I wasn't overly blown away by it. I probably will jump in and try and play a little bit more next weekend, and maybe as I start to get better loot, the game might start to open up, and I might start to enjoy it a little bit more. But what I have played just really didn't hook me in, and it is making me a little bit cautious when approaching it. What I would say is I do think it's well worth you picking it up, jumping in and checking it out yourself. If you have pre-ordered the game, you on PC or Xbox One, the closed beta is going to be available this weekend, the 14th of August to the 16th of August. It'll be open again for the PlayStation 4 with an open beta, but if you haven't pre-ordered the game and you want to check it out, then from the 21st of August to the 23rd of August, there is going to be an open beta where everybody can jump in and check it out. So if you're still unsure, I would say pick up this game, play the beta, get a sense of it yourself, and then make your decision based on that. But those were generally my first impressions of the beta, what I generally thought about it. I hope you guys found this video interesting, informative, and useful. If you did, please share your thoughts in the comment section below. Please like the video. Let me know your thoughts on the beta, if you picked it up and you played it this weekend, and let me know if this is a game that you're interested in, you know, and that you're going to be picking up in September, or if it's a game that you're going to hold back on. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Anyway, hope you guys have a great week. Take care, and as always, happy gaming. Bye, guys.